Morning by Faith Christian family, where we walk by faith and not by sight. As always, I am so happy and blessed to be here with you today to share God's word. And for the month of November, as you know, we've been talking about gratitude and giving thanks to God. And so we're going to finish up this Sunday, and we know that and thanking God is not always about what God has done for us, but it's about who God is. And so we're going to finish off this Sunday, finish up the month of November. And this one is about showing appreciation and gratitude for others, okay? So that's an important thing. And again, we'll look at some Bible verses. And again, we know how important it is to show your gratitude and thank God for all He has done. And when you all shared your testimonies this morning, you know, I could just hear how good God has been to you all. Thank you for giving Him all the honor, glory, and praise for all that He has done. Okay, so we're going to get moving. I am a little tired from traveling, but I'm going to get through this. And again, just thanking God. I hope everyone had a happy, safe, and blessed Thanksgiving. We had a wonderful time, and so just remembering to keep that spirit of Thanksgiving throughout the year. So let's get moving. We'll be in different books today. So not just one book, but as I was thinking about appreciation and gratitude towards others, I was thinking about, in my family, we were raised to say please when you ask for something and say thank you when someone gives you something. And my mom always said to us that nobody has to do anything for you. So when people do things for me, it's a big deal because I know they didn't have to do it. I don't take it for granted. And so even with Rainbow, we are raising her the same way, teaching her to say please and thank you, to show gratitude when she's thankful for something that someone has given her. So let's jump into our verses. The first one is Ephesians 1:16. And where we find ourselves here is Paul, and he's in prison and he's writing a letter to the church. And this one is different from the other letters where he had to continue to deal with problems in the church after he had established those churches. But this one, to the Ephesians, he's just basically reminding them of the doctrine and their Christian experience and telling them that they need to keep the faith. So I love this verse. It's Ephesians 1:16. He says, here's Paul, I have not stopped giving thanks for you, remembering you in my prayers. And so Paul was thanking God for them, you know, at Ephesus, thanking God for them and remembering them in his prayers. And so that is what we should do. We should not stop thanking God for the people in our lives who touch our lives and just help us along the way. And then I love the part about remembering you in my prayers. And how many know that we should be praying for each other on today? So not only am I thanking God for you all, but I'm also remembering you in my prayers and praying for you all. So that is what Paul was saying here, to thank God for each other. So in our next verses, we are in 2 Kings, and we are going to look at the 5th chapter, 13th through the 15th verse. And what is happening here is Naaman, he was a great warrior, and he had leprosy, and so he wanted to be healed. And so he sends so he goes to Elisha to be healed, and Elisha didn't even come out and speak to him. He sent his servant out, and he told Naaman, go and dip in the river Jordan or wash in the river Jordan 7 times. Well, Naaman, he got upset about it. He was like, wait, I came all this way to get healed from this great prophet Elisha. He didn't even come out to speak to me. He sent someone else to talk to me. And then he tells me to dip or wash 7 times in the river Jordan. Well, there are some cleaner rivers around. There are some greater rivers around. Why did he tell me to go wash in the Jordan River? And so with that, he got upset. He was like, well, just forget it. But one of his servants who was with him, he said to him, you know, you need to do this. So we're going to pick up there at the 13th verse. But his officers tried to reason with him and said, If the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply, go and wash and be cured. So Naaman went down to the Jordan River and dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed him. And his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child, and he was healed. Then Naaman and his entire party went back to find the man of God. They stood before him, and Naaman said, now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant. And so what do we see here? We see Naaman being thankful for the healing, and so he wants to give Elisha a gift. So sometimes when we want to say thank you to people, how many know sometimes you should give them some kind of gift? And so what he was doing there is he was trying to give him a gift that would support the ministry, that would support the man of God. And so it's more to this story, but we're just talking today about giving gratitude to each other. So Naaman, thankful to be healed, he says, okay, I'm going to give you a gift. So let's keep going. The next one is Luke 7, the 7th chapter. And here we're talking about showing gratitude and appreciation by doing something for someone. So sometimes it's not about a gift, it's just about doing something for someone. So here, where we find ourselves is with the woman with the alabaster box or jar, whichever it is. And so what this woman did is she came in and she approached Jesus, and she poured this expensive perfume on his feet, and she used her hair and her tears, and she was wiping his feet, used her hair like a rag is what it says in the word. And so she was just doing something for Jesus because she wanted to show gratitude. So let's look at this, Luke 7 to 36 verse. One of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him. So Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. When a certain immoral woman from the city heard he was eating there, she brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. Then she knelt behind him at his feet, weeping. Her tears fell on his feet, and she wiped them off with her hair. Then she kept kissing his feet and putting perfume on him. And so she's saying, she's showing her gratitude by doing something for him. How many know that sometimes you just need to do something for somebody? We don't always have money, but maybe you can take somebody to the store. Maybe you can share something you have at home with them. Maybe you could just call them and give them a kind word. And so we'll talk about that more in just a little bit. All right, so next thing that we have going on here is in the 39th verse. When the Pharisees who had invited Jesus there saw this, he said to himself, if the man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. She is a sinner. And so they had something to say about this woman. She's coming in, she's using this expensive perfume or ointment on his feet, but she's a sinner. And so she was a prostitute is what she was. And so they were judging, and they were saying, how in the world is Jesus allowing this prostitute to touch him and show him gratitude? You know, she's a sinner. Jesus, he gave a parable where he talked about forgiving a smaller debt and a more expensive debt. And so Jesus was saying, well, which one will be more grateful? And then here's Simon what he's saying. I suppose the one for whom he canceled the larger debt. That's right, Jesus said. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, look at the woman kneeling here. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust from my feet, but she has washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't greet me with a kiss, but from the time I first came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You neglected the courtesy of olive oil to anoint my head, but she has anointed my feet with rare perfume. And so as she's showing gratitude, Jesus is saying to them, you know what, you can say whatever it is you want to say about her, but from the time I got here, you all didn't offer me water to wash my feet. And how many know that they walked pretty much everywhere they went? And so it was a big deal when you reach somewhere to get your feet clean. And so he was saying, don't talk about her. She's done more for me in these few minutes than you all have done. And so as I was thinking about this, the question that came is, who have you failed to show gratitude to? And so Jesus was saying, you know, she showed gratitude, but you all didn't. So when we think about that, is there anybody in your life right now that you can think of offhand who has done something for you and you need to do something for them, but somehow it just fell off your radar, or you didn't even think that you needed to show them gratitude? Any thoughts on that today? So think about that. You can even do it on the way home. Call someone and show them gratitude. And I was thinking about that this morning as Maria called, and then Minister Bill came in, and we were talking before service. And it's just so good because God will send the right people to minister to you. And so you're thinking, you know, God, all this stuff is going on, but he will send the right people to call you. He will send the right people to talk to you about different things. So I want to say thank you, show my gratitude by saying thank you for this morning, for ministering into my spirit. Okay, so who have you forgotten to show gratitude to on today? So the next one is, I love this. So Boaz, he showed kindness to Ruth through kind words, and then also we know what happened at the end. So we're going to walk this one. I'm going to try not to go too fast because I love this story of Boaz and Ruth. And so we know in the book of Ruth, we know that that Naomi was her mother-in-law. We know Naomi's sons died, and also her husband. And so she decided to go back from Moabite to her homeland, Bethlehem. And with that, her daughter-in-law Ruth decided to go with her. And so that was a great thing. Ruth left her homeland. She's going to Bethlehem, not really knowing their God or the people or anything, but she went back with her mother-in-law. And so the other thing that they used to do when you didn't have much is you had to glean. And so what does that mean? That means that as the people who own the fields, as they will harvest, it was set up where they would leave little bits behind, and then people could come and they could gather up, people who didn't have enough food or whatever, they could gather up what was left and they would have something to eat. So Ruth, she was gleaning because she came back with her mother-in-law. They didn't have much. They didn't have husbands, nothing, sons, nothing. And how many know back then that's how you made your living? Women depended on men to do that for them. So that's where we pick up in this story. Ruth is gleaning, and she's taking care of her mother-in-law, and she's left her country. So that's who we are. So in Ruth, the 2nd chapter, the 8th verse. So Boaz said to Ruth, my daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the woman who works for me, with the women who works for me. So what he's doing now is he's showing kindness to her because he heard about how good she had been to her mother-in-law. 9th verse, watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you, and whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled. At this, she bowed down with her face to the ground. She asked him, why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me a foreigner? So again, he's showing kindness to her. He's saying, okay, you don't have to glean with that group. You can come over here with this group. And I've also told the men, do not lay a hand on you if you need a drink of water. So he's showing kindness to her at this time because he appreciates what she did for her mother-in-law. So let's keep moving. So she's like, why are you being nice to me? The 11th verse, Boaz replied, I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with the people you did not know before. And I love the 12th verse. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. And so I love this because he spoke the blessing into her life. He said, may the Lord repay you for what you have done. And how many know that words have power on today? How many know that we should speak those blessings into the atmosphere and allow God to grow that positive word? And he says, may you be richly rewarded. And so I love that part. So he's speaking kind words to her. And how many know that we can just show gratitude by speaking kind words? I was thinking about one time I was on the highway, and there was a billboard that said thank you. Have anybody ever seen that? It was a few years ago, just a big billboard that said thank you. And I was like, wow, thank you. Like, that's so great. People really don't say thank you anymore. It's like somehow it's just gotten lost in our culture. But we have to learn to speak kind words and also say thank you. And so here in the 13th verse, she says, may I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord, she said. You have put me at ease by speaking kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servants. So now she's thanking him. She's like, thank you for allowing me to be safe, to glean in your fields and all that kind of stuff. And then the 14th verse, I love this. At mealtime, Boaz said to her, come over here, have some bread and dip in the wine vinegar. When she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, let her gather among the sheaves and don't reprimand her. Even pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her. So Ruth gleaned in the field until evening. Then she threshed the barley she had gathered, and it amounted to about Bfcc, I think that's what it's called. I don't know how much that is, but it was a whole lot. And so not only did he give her something to eat, he told them let her go wherever she wanted to go, because we know certain parts of the field were off limits to the gleaners. And then he also told the men, he said, leave some behind, leave some of the good stuff behind so that she can take some of that too. And so what he was doing here is he was showing gratitude by meeting her needs. And how many know that we can show gratitude to people by just meeting their needs? Again, it's not always about financial, but somebody could just need to talk. Like, I just needed to talk this morning, and I said Maria called, and then Mr. Bell came in. And so we can meet each other's needs and show gratitude in that way. So let's keep moving through our verses. So here in the 18th verse, she had all that barley and wheat and everything. It says she carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough. Her mother-in-law asked her, where did you glean today? Where did you work? Because her mother-in-law is like, wow, you came back with a lot more today than you normally have. Where did you go? What were you doing? All right. Blessed be the man who took notice of you. Then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one at whose place she had been working. The name of the man I worked with today is Boaz, she said. Okay. So he was showing kindness to her. And then her mother-in-law was like, oh yes, Boaz, he's one of our family members. Like, he's not our next to kin, but he's one of our family members, and you should stay in that field and you should go ahead and get as much as you can, because he was showing so much kindness to her. So let's move to Ruth, the 3rd chapter, the 15th verse. And then here we know that Naomi gave Ruth some instructions about what she needed to do to catch Boaz's eye, to let Boaz know that she was interested in being with him. And so she followed the instructions of the elder. In the 15th verse, he also said, "Bring me your shawl you are wearing and hold it out." When she did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and placed the bundle on her. Then he went back to town. And so here he's giving her more stuff. Now this time she's got 6 measures of barley, and he's still showing gratitude to her. He's taking care of her needs. And so again, think about that. Showing gratitude can be meeting someone's needs. And then the last part of Ruth 4 chapter, the 13th verse, and here's the ultimate gratitude that he showed her. So Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. So I know I went through that story really fast, but again, it's about showing gratitude. And he showed gratitude to her because she showed gratitude to her mother-in-law. And how many know what goes around comes around? And so I think about the law of sowing and reaping, and I also think about that when it comes back around, sometimes people get upset and they go, well, I did this for so and so and they didn't return the favor, they didn't show gratitude. But how many know that God can bring it back through somebody else? He can bring it back a different way. So don't worry about, you showed gratitude to this person and they were ungrateful, they didn't show it back to you. God will bring it back in a different way. So let's keep moving. Now the next one is 1 Samuel, the 25th verse, and I love this story. This is about David, and what he was going to do, he went to Nabal and he asked for food and just some provisions, as they called it, and Nabal was like, I'm not giving you all anything. I don't know you. You don't deserve nothing. But when Nabal's his servants and everybody was out in the field, David and his servants, his warriors, they actually took care of them and made sure that nobody robbed them and nobody got hurt and all of that. So Nabal, he was being really disrespectful to David, and David got really angry, and David was like, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to go after him. But what happened was Nabal's wife, Abigail, she heard about what had happened, what her husband had done. And so she went out to meet David, and she brought all kinds of food and provisions and everything that they needed. And so that saved the day. So she was like, whew, thank you, God, it saved the day. And so what happened was she got back home. She told her husband about it the next morning when he was sober. And I love this part. This is the good part, but something bad happened. So when she told her husband, he actually had a stroke and he ended up dying. And David didn't have to kill him or his men. So in the 39th verse, here's how David shows his gratitude to Abigail. When David heard that Nabal, which was her husband, was dead, he said, Praise the Lord, who has avenged the insult I received from Nabal and has kept me from doing it myself. Nabal has received the punishment for his sin. Then David sent messengers to Abigail to ask her to become his wife. And so her husband passed away. We know it's not a good thing, but David was so grateful for the respect and everything that she had shown to him. He said, you know what? I'm going to marry her. And that's what he did. So in the 39th verse, we read that already. So he married her and carried her back with him to wherever he was living. And so we have to know that we can show people gratitude. And I love this. I was thinking, wow, that's a lot for him to marry her as a sense of gratitude, but we don't know how people are going to show gratitude to us. And it's important, again, that we show gratitude. So the next one is Nehemiah, and this will round us out for today in terms of showing gratitude, because I wanted to end this month with us just thinking about how we can show gratitude to each other. And so we know that Nehemiah, they were rebuilding the wall, and so the way he showed gratitude is that he recognized specific work. And so sometimes, if you think about it, sometimes we say to people, and this is Nehemiah 3 and 6, we say to people, good job, you did a good job. But sometimes we need to be specific with people and tell them what was good. What did you like about it? I really like the way you did X, Y, and Z. I really like the way you cut the grass. I really like the way you helped me with X, Y, and Z. And so when we recognize recognize people as Nehemiah did. In Nehemiah 3 and 6, he was talking about the old city gate, and it was specific to what they were doing, and so he showed recognition. The other one is we want to recognize people who have a great attitude, and so Nehemiah did that in Nehemiah 3 and 20. And so he recognized this one worker in the scripture, and he was just saying, you had a good attitude. How many know a good attitude is important on today? I mean, a good attitude will take you all the way. And so you like when people recognize that, when they say, wow, with everything that's going on, you still have a good attitude about this situation. And so Nehemiah, he recognized the person who had the good attitude while building the wall, because they were doing some hard work. And then in Nehemiah 3 and 21, Nehemiah recognizes extra effort. And so how many know that sometimes we just have to recognize people when they go that extra mile? And I love that, because again, people don't have to do anything for you, and that's just like stuck in my head. When you're little, they put all kind of stuff in your head, but that is just stuck in my brain. And so even like the smallest thing, somebody will think is a small thing, and I would just show gratitude, and I would say thank you. And they're like, what's wrong with her? All I did was, X, Y, and Z. But in my mind, it's a really big deal, because people don't have to do anything for you. So as we move to our points for gratitude, the first way we can show gratitude to others is by giving gifts. And so some people, again, are great gift givers, and we saw this in our verses today. When Naaman was healed of leprosy, he wanted to give Elisha a gift. So feel free to show gratitude by giving gifts. And again, thoughtful gifts are important to me. So one of the things you all know I like to do is I drink tea a lot. And so Karen gave me a nice tea cup. I call it a teacup. I don't know what it is. But I use it here every Sunday, and it has joy on it. And then Alexis gave me a tea kettle and a teacup, and so I use that at home. But it's like people might think, well, it's just a teacup. Like, why are you so excited? Well, I'm excited because it was a thoughtful gift, and it's something that I can use. Gifts don't have to be like $1 million, but it's what is it that you can give somebody to show your appreciation that they can use. And then the next point is we show gratitude by doing something for someone. And again, I want you to keep that in mind. It's not always about money. It's just, how can we help someone? How can we look at someone and see what it is they need, whether it's at work, whether it's in our family? What is it that people need? We can show our gratitude by helping them. And the next one is we can show gratitude by blessing someone with kind words. And kind words are really, really important. I can't stress that enough, because I feel like we don't see it enough in the world. I feel like enough people aren't kind as they should be. So we can just bless people by saying thank you. We can just bless people by speaking kind words into their spirit. So keep that in mind, because it encourages people and it uplifts them. The next one is we can show gratitude by recognizing someone for their work, their attitude, and for going the extra mile. Just don't forget to say thank you. And again, I think about that at home with Rainbow. We give her stuff, and she doesn't always say thank you right away. And so we look at her and say, what do you say? And she'll say thank you. She's only 2. So if a 2-year-old knows to say thank you, I think we should know to say thank you as well. And then the last point is the same as always, and that is God is faithful. And so when we show kindness to others, God will allow someone to be kind to us. And so that is the law of sowing and reaping. You won't be out here being kind and God is not allowing people to be kind to you. That's just not how it works. Again, it might not be the same person who you've been kind to, but God will allow that kindness to come back to you. And so as we round out everything today, for the month of November, about gratitude. I just want to remind you to be kind and be thankful again, not only to God, but also to others. So may God bless you and keep you. And I look forward to seeing everyone next time. God bless you.